I had been served divorce paperwork and I said, I'm going in all in no matter what. Burning the boats going forward. I didn't know the divorce paperwork was coming. I thought we were working on things, but we kept focusing on all the problems and that wasn't working. I was sleeping literally 2 hours a day. My wife actually made the comments. She's like, man, the kids are really responding to you and they're talking about how their time with you has been great and you're listening to them. She's like, I wish we had that. I was like, yeah, me too. Our grandkids will understand what, grandpa did for the family someday in the future. That's what I really want for our family is to break the generational curse of divorce and separation.
You just got to be coachable. Men, the admission for today's video is only one thing. Press that like button, but more importantly for you, press the subscribe button. Make sure after you hit the subscribe button that you do change those settings to all. I don't want you to miss one single video that could actually help you save your marriage. Today I'm with Brian. Brian's sharing his experience of going through the Divorce Stoppers program. If you don't already know who I am, my name is Griffin, and I help men who are facing unwanted divorce or separation forever get their life back on track. And the path that we take to do that is coincidentally the way that you also stop working on your marriage, you stop working on your relationship, because working on the marriage and working on the relationship is what's always not going to work because the problem is never the problem. And focusing on the problem only gets you more problems. So today I'm with Brian. He's sharing his experience of where he was and where he's at today with a vision of where he's going in his life, his relationship, and what his experience was, why he enrolled in a student in the Divorce Stoppers program, and what his experience is like maybe before he started and during and even today where he's at in that journey. So Brian, welcome to the program. I appreciate you taking your time to come on here and share your experience with your current brothers right now, the other students, but also anybody else that might be in a place that's not so good, maybe at an all-time low in their life, an all-time low in their relationship, and maybe even other areas in their life. And they're just knowing that they've been praying, is there hope? Is there a reason? And we're going to share your experience today to see, is this person in the shoes that you were in? And is there a path forward to take the steps necessary to align their actions with their goals? Instead of what they've been doing, aligning it with their feelings, it's giving them the life and the relationship that they don't want, because I did that. And I'm guessing you might have done some of that too. We're about to find out.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Denver. Yeah, I was in a pretty tough place when I started the program. I was in a previous program and I was seeing a few wins there, but it wasn't helping anything with my wife. And right when I joined the program with Divorce Stoppers, I had been served divorce paperwork that day. And I said, I'm going in all in no matter what, burning the boats going forward. And so joined Divorce Stoppers. I didn't know the divorce paperwork was coming. I thought we were working on things, but we kept focusing on all the problems and that wasn't working.
What was the other program that you were in prior to joining Divorce Stoppers, and how long had you been in that? And what was it for you in particular in your specific circumstances where that wasn't working for you? So that's three questions.
I was in the Josh Hudson program, and I was in there about 5 months. And one of the things I didn't care for in their program was they said, let your wife walk. If she wants to divorce, let her go. And I thought, man, that can't be the way. That can't be the way, just to let her go. And they said, yeah, just let her go. Let your wife go. And if she comes back, she comes back. And I'm like, that's not what I want to be part of. And so I wanted to come to your program. I thought it was significantly different, where we focus on ourselves and by being a better man, then reattract our wives back to the relationship.
That totally relates to me, because when I was in your shoes, when my marriage was ending, I had already been through one divorce. I had a 20-year marriage before my current marriage, and that marriage ended after 20 years. I really don't think that marriage was supposed to end, but I didn't understand how to restore that, and I literally ran out of time. And, by the grace of God, I've been blessed with another marriage that was very, very great. It was for many, many, many years. It was amazing. But then life happens, stress, unbelievable, came on to the family. And I started maybe revisiting some of my old habits, old patterns. And I was kind of like this miserable man, and I was making my wife feel responsible for my unhappiness. I kind of lost my vision and my calling and where I was supposed to be going. And I started aligning my actions in my marriage with my feelings, and started putting pressure on my wife, which literally ultimately pushed her to enemies of the marriage to let off the steam. Because when you apply pressure, that pressure has to be released somewhere. Otherwise, that person's going to explode. But I was just a very unhappy person. My wife was an unhappy person. And I positioned my leadership so that my wife felt responsible for not only her unhappiness, but also for my happiness. And nobody's designed to carry that weight. I don't know if any of that can relate to you. Let me ask you a question though. You mentioned you're in another program, and I'm assuming the person that you indicated there, I don't know if they have one program, two programs. I literally don't really look at other people's content because I don't want it to influence what I'm doing here, because I know what works for my situation. And the goal is I bring men into this that are in the shoes similar to what I was in, because I've been qualified to take them out of that, because I just teach it the way that I restored my own marriage. And, that's really what works. But, you kind of bring up a point, not really like targeting one person or one program, but if you're a man right now, put in the comments if you're in a failed relationship and you're on YouTube and you're watching videos, or you might even be a paid student of another program. Is the person that you're watching on YouTube, or is the person that's teaching the program that you're in, have they ever been in your shoes? As a Christian, something that I teach, I'm a radically different Christian. I get the most hate from the Christian community. But as a Christian, I always teach God doesn't necessarily call the qualified. I went to college. I had a lot of psychological training in the 8 years that I was in school, even though I never actually got a degree and I'm not a licensed counselor. But I learned a lot about psychology really over the last 40 years as I've been studying. And the things that I learned in school, like if you have PTSD or something like that, it makes sense. But the things that I learned in college concerning the psychology of relationship restoration and counseling is the opposite in the real world of what works. It's the reason marriage counseling doesn't work. If one person wants out, one person wants to work on it, it never is reconciled because of counseling. Put in the comments if you think I'm wrong. If you know somebody that's in counseling and their marriage was restored, put that in the comments. But I can also challenge even your comment to say that if somebody's in marriage counseling and their marriage was restored, it was in spite of the marriage counseling, not because of it. Like there was something else, because that's not what works. So you had talked about another program. What was it specifically, not about the person, but about that process or that program? I realized there were some things that were said, according to what you're saying, that was out of alignment with the goal to restore your marriage. It doesn't make sense to say, forget the marriage if she has no interest. My God, you knew that when you joined. That was probably the whole purpose of joining. So that comment was out of alignment. But what specifically about the process that you were being taught to take, or for you that you saw this is not working? Maybe some statements were out of alignment, but the journey that wasn't working for you because of where you were and what your goals were, if there was something specific.
I think when I just looked at the program as a whole, I wasn't seeing the kind of wins that I thought I should see. And I had seen a few of your videos, and I particularly liked that you had been through this process. Like you were a witness to the process and you knew the hardships. And I thought, man, that's kind of a coach I could take leadership from. And the other program, it just seemed there was men that you connected with, but it seemed so distant. And it wasn't like just a close relationship where I could get that one-on-one kind of coaching that I needed, or have the real close relationships with the other men in the group, which I think is critically important for guys, because oftentimes I think that's where we fail, is we lose our friendships, we lose our purpose, and we don't have that close connection. And like you were saying, we put all the stress on our wives and they're not meant to handle that. Mm-hmm. And I saw that in my marriage as well.
Yeah, 100%. So when you joined that program and then ultimately found this program, so you joined one program and you found that, what would you say that was it making things worse concerning the marriage, or no?
There's a couple things that got better, but I think in the end, I put too much pressure on her. The process I was taking and some of the direction I was taking from them, I saw pressure. And I think that's when she filed for divorce, right? While I was in that program. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to totally go away from that. I'm going all in on your program. That's just where I'm going to go. And I started seeing the wins instantly.
So the day that you found us, so before day one, before the wins started stacking up instantly, the day before you were a Divorce Stopper student, where were you at spiritually and emotionally, and maybe any other place that was not where you wanted to be, relationally?
What's interesting, that week, it was a Friday, and that week my heart was off. Like my heart was hurting, and I was texting my wife, and things were kind of tense between us. And I said, "Hey, are you okay? My heart's hurting." And she's like, through text. This is all through text. She's like, "No, I need to tell you something." Like, what? What's going on? And she's like, "I filed for divorce." I was like, "Oh my God," right? And that was probably the lowest point for me. And I was willing to do whatever it took to change myself and work towards restoration. But specifically, that was not working on the marriage. That was fixing my heart and fixing my direction in life.
Yeah, changing your leadership in a way. This is a common theme when I do these calls with students. They'll tell me something like, well, I can't say really anything bad about another program that I was doing, because you really haven't said anything bad about the other program. But what you did say was there were some benefits, like it might have even been worth my investment of my time or my finances. So why would anybody say that if it didn't help to restore their marriage? Well, because if the goal is to get out of having thoughts of depression or checking out, and I say that because that's where I was. Like, I can literally say, as a stage 4 cancer overcomer and survivor, and going through 2 years of healing my body and chemo and radiation and all the horrible stuff that comes with throat cancer diagnosis. Cancer is one thing. Throat cancer, when it affects your speech, your ability to swallow, your ability to eat, that's a whole new ballgame. And I'm not making this about me when I shared this. When my wife files a divorce, what I was going through emotionally and spiritually, I would hands down have picked going through the cancer journey again and the hell that came with that and the pain that came with it over the experience of being served with divorce papers. It was like the worst thing I can think I ever went through my life.
I had, similar to you, I had 2 knee surgeries where they actually cut my legs in half, took out my hip bones and put them in my knees to straighten out my legs. I would rather go through those surgeries again where I couldn't walk than have to deal with the changes in my heart and changes with my relationship with Christ and my leadership, because that's the hardest thing to work on is yourself. But that pain was nothing, right?
Yeah. For anybody listening to this, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard this my whole life, that knee surgery and knee pain and that type of medical treatment that you went through is some of the most, if not the worst, physical pain that you can experience as a human in the entire world. So if you haven't ever had a knee surgery or, that kind of knee procedures, and you had to go through the healing process of it, when he brings that up, that's like probably the worst physical pain you can imagine, and multiply that times 1,000. And that's what he's comparing that to for anybody that's never had that kind of pain. So that really means that it's a really a bad place. If that's you right now and you're watching this video, put in the comments, have you lost 40 pounds? Are you sitting on your couch hopeless? Are you addicted to YouTube videos and you're laying and you're crying yourself to sleep at night? Is your first thought that you have in the morning when you wake up after she says, I want a divorce, we're getting separated, it's over, I don't want anything else to do with you? Is your first thought every morning when you wake up, if you're able to even get 2 hours of sleep, is your first thought, oh, damn, I wish I hadn't woke up? Like I am still living this nightmare. It's not just a bad dream. This is really where my life is. Put that in the comments if that's where you're at. And if you don't already know who I am, if you're new to the channel, my name is Griffin. I help men who are facing an unwanted divorce or a separation from the woman that they love restore and rebuild it the right way. And we start doing that with communication on making your wife feel heard, valued, and seen. As of this week, I've started doing 3 videos on YouTube a week. I want to make sure you don't miss any of those. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I do have subscriber-only content, including this week, I'm doing a free text message communication training for my non-students, for my YouTube subscribers. And to make sure you don't miss any of these videos that you need right now desperately, make sure and hit that bell notification and change those settings to all. If you want to go ahead and stick in the comments also, if you have interest in that upcoming training for my subscribers, I'll make sure that my team gets the link out to you to do that. And that's going to be this week. We're going to be let you register for that. So Brian, you were at that place that I was, that so many people are. And 100% of the men that get to the place where the wife says divorce, 100% of the time, she has something called cognitive bias, or as you hear me say inside the program, confirmation bias. And what confirmation bias is she might even still feel emotions of being in love with you. She might even love you, but believe she's not in love with you. And that means that confirmation bias exists. How do you know? There's enemies of the marriage. You were the pressure that put the pressure on her. Your wife is a flower that was in your garden for a while, but you never know what the color of her petals were because you never understood how to communicate with her so that you could see the flowers of that precious flower that God has entrusted you with. All you know is there's a green stalk there with a bud on it that looks like the head of a penis. And sometimes it even feels like it, because when you start communicating And the feminine, which is the reason marriages fail, she will pivot into the masculine. So you feel the pressure of that penis that you've created out of ignorance. Not stupidity, not bad intentions, just ignorance because we don't know what we don't know. Where would you say, you said things started turning around for you immediately? The goal of the program is that the train heading to game over forever, the goal anyway, we don't always achieve it, but about 80% of the time we do in the first 7 days, is we put the brakes on the train, we stick it in reverse and start building up some momentum going back towards restoration. You may not make love the first 7 days, but the goal is to turn the train around. It takes a minute. We slow things down to speed it up, to speed up the restoration. What did that look like for you? Step 1 of the Divorce Doctors program, communication. Tell me your experience of that. Tell me if you were shocked or surprised also once you actually got started.
Yeah. So initially, once I learned how to communicate with her through text, because I was sending the long, 10, 15 line text messages before, and I thought that was the way to do things. But once I started sending masculine text messages, she instantly started responding in the feminine. And I think it caught her off guard. And I think she started she was hitting the brakes like, whoa, like I'm slipping down the slide and I don't want to do this, right? And
she's pulling back. She's pulling back, right?
Oh,
you're running the sword.
It scared her. She was literally saying to me, "Who are you?" in my text messages. And, I was asking her questions like, if you were a flower on our farm, what type of flower would you be? And she's like, you've never asked me these questions in our entirety of our relationship. She's like, who are you? She's like, who's telling you to say these things? I'm like, I want to know who you are as a person, right? And so instantly I started seeing some of those wins. But like you were saying, there were several enemies of the marriage. And it took me a while to figure out kind of the game board and all the pieces on the board, because some of these people were people that we were mutually friends with that, I was the guy creating all the pressure. And so she, naturally was going to these folks and saying, hey, my husband's being tough and he's working too much and we're not connecting. And so there was multiple enemies of the marriage. And so it's taken me a while to figure everything out and then start rebuilding relationships with those folks as well. So some of the wins came instantly, and it took me a little while after that to figure some more things out and work farther.
Yeah. And for anybody listening right now, if you're listening to this video and you hear him talking about Brian saying, like she's saying, who told you to say this? I've never taught inside the program to go tell any woman, what type of flower. So just for the sake of people that are watching this, that are needing help, so they understand what that means, is I'm not giving anybody words to say. There's no checklist. Here's 1 through 99 items to say. What I am doing though, is instead for all of the new students is I'm teaching you how to actually put yourself in your wife's shoes and see her, see things from her vantage point, from her perspective. And once you start the process of seeing your wife, then you'll have the process of hearing her. When you actually start seeing someone that's in front of you and you understand how to hear them. By the way, this is not common sense. I don't know that I've ever met anybody that actually, and I don't know anybody else in the world that's actually teaching this the way that I teach it. I hope it exists. I haven't come across it. How do you see somebody, hear somebody in a way that they feel seen, they feel heard, which organically just naturally makes them feel valued? Put in the comments if you're watching this video right now, where that if your wife could just see your heart, if she would just listen to you long enough to know what's in here, you wouldn't even be facing a divorce. You wouldn't have already got divorced. You wouldn't be hurting. She wouldn't be hurting. She wouldn't be mad. She wouldn't be enrolling enemies of the marriage to make it obvious that you're the bad guy in the divorce process here, which is very, very, very normal. Put in the comments if you knew if your wife could just see you, your marriage would be restored. Put that in the comments. Now, let me share something with you. There's a fast path for your wife to see you. And here's the secret. If you understand how to see her, hear her, that makes her feel valued. And then when you do that, it'll be the first time in a long time your wife will actually start seeing you. But that will not happen until you see her, which gives you the new eyes to see yourself in the reflection of her eyes, psychologically speaking. So what does this mean? If your wife wants a divorce, you'll never restore your marriage getting your shit together, making changes. Because who has to change in order to save the marriage? The wife. Now, does that require that you're going to change? Absolutely. But you making the changes is not enough. You have to make changes in your leadership that doesn't leave her behind in the weeds. Here's something that's 100% of marriages that are failing. Two miserable people. Unhappy man, unhappy woman. If the man gets happy and makes all these changes and he leaves her, how is that even fair? But you can make changes in a way that starts with communication, which is the opposite of no contact, in a way that leads her to change with you psychologically, emotionally, and even spiritually. A lot of people, for many years, I thought soulmate status was bullshit. 100%. I experience it now. And before my marriage actually was about to end in divorce, it was really good actually for many years. I mean, it really was good, but it never was soulmate status until I was facing divorce and figure out how do you connect on that level where somebody feels seen in a way that they feel safe to see you, where we're not putting up those walls. So what was that journey like for you? So communication starts immediately changing some things. Where did that take you from there?
Right. From the communication, that opens the door to, seeing your family again and less tense, but still there was some uncertainty and some trust issues, probably both ways, where we were both kind of nervous to be around each other. But I'll tell you, instantly I started sleeping better. Under the other program, like you were saying, I was sleeping literally 2 hours a day. And under this program, I started sleeping more, which helped me be more calm and focus on myself. I started seeing some wins as far as like spending time with my wife and kids and just seeing each other as people. And interestingly enough, I was able to look at other couples and see like, oh man, he's not communicating with her very well. He's not listening to his wife. He doesn't. And I was like, I'd go talk to my friends. I'm like, hey, maybe you should ask her this question, or maybe you should say this to her. Maybe you should spend some more time with her. And he's like, my friends were like, how do you know this stuff? I was like, well, you just got to trust me. And so I thought that was pretty amazing because I think once you can kind of teach something or talk about it, then you're learning it better. And so then I started seeing multiple wins, and I would say everybody's length of journey is a little bit different. There's, a preferred shorter timeline, but I think some things take a little bit longer just due to some, factors out of your control.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. But the fact that you started having immediate turnaround in the training, that's the goal for 100% of every student. Like every student, if they do it the way I'm teaching, they should all experience that if there's communication. And, right now, if you're watching this video and you're like, if you're thinking, well, the only thing my wife will talk to me about is just the bills. The only thing that my wife will talk to me about is just the kids and the drop off or the divorce case. Like she doesn't want to talk about the relationship at all. I know you've seen examples where I've coached students. I'm pretty sure you've been on some of the live coaching where I've coached students like specifically around, hey, you're not doing what I'm teaching on the communication, and how logistical communication over a light bill or over taking the kids to camp or, just taking the dog to the groomer can have a huge impact on turning everything around, because you can use the stuff about logistical stuff that has nothing to do with the relationship. You can use that to really make her think, oh, who am I talking to here? Like nobody's made me feel this way in my entire life. You know what? Let me ask you this. The stuff I know now, I didn't know when my marriage for the first several years, when it was what I would say really, really good, like a really good, healthy marriage. Right. At that time, I did not know even then how to make my wife feel seen, heard, and valued. The reason the marriage was so good before it faced divorce was because we just had fun. But I truly didn't have the eyes to see my wife. Would you say that the new eyes of seeing not just your wife, but how did that land in your family with your children and other family members and colleagues and coworkers, employers, employees? How did it start evolving you as a person, and from the perspective of what were other people thinking about the relationship that they had with you, if you had a significant change in any of those areas?
Yeah, I'd say the first real changes I saw was speaking to my kids and learning to understand them as a microcosm of my relationship with my wife. And my wife actually made the comments. She's like, man, the kids are really responding to you, and they're talking about how their time with you has been great and you're listening to them. I was like, yeah, things are going well. She's like, I wish we had that. I was like, yeah, me too. And, I noticed at work, talking to some guys, as a dude, a lot of times we don't talk about feelings or we don't talk about what really motivates us inside or our family lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was
Yeah.
able to talk to a lot of friends in a way that I had never talked to them before and understood them. And they really opened up to me. And a couple of those guys seemed like they were having some troubles with their marriage. And I would just sit and talk and listen to them for like an hour or two. And I said, well, why don't you try this or this, open up and understand your wife and listen to them. And they'd come back a couple of weeks later, like, man, that really worked the trick. And I'm just thinking, if I would have known these things a couple of years sooner with my wife, or from day one, really, I could have built something far greater, but we're on that path.
Yeah. Yeah, 1,000,000%. You could have done that. Not only could you have built things far greater in your marriage, you could have built things far, far greater in the intimacy with your children, your leadership there as a parent, but also as an entrepreneur, like in your business and your calling. For anybody that's watching this video right now, if what we're talking about right now with Brian, the successes that he's shared, where he's at so far, we're going to share some more of this. But if you know that you're in the same situation, that the divorce is filed. Maybe you've already got a legal divorce and maybe she's shopping the market. Maybe she's looking at a boyfriend, or maybe you're naive and thinks that's not happening. And it very much probably is so happening. If that's where you're at and you know that you need help, my video editor is putting up a QR code right now. This week, I'm teaching a pre-marriage U-turn masterclass live 9 times. If you'll pause the video, scan the QR code, or go to the link in the description to register for that free marriage U-turn masterclass, I'm going to show you the first steps in identifying how do I understand if communication is where the breakdown is. How do I know and understand, am I dealing with confirmation bias? And if that's where you're at, register for that free marriage U-turn masterclass. On the other side of the screen, my video editor is putting up a QR code where if you know that you have a need for speed, if you're listening to Brian and you know things, you're like in the same boat, things were bad, and then one day, he's talking to his wife, or the process server shows up at the front door and they say, hey, you've been served. If that's where you're at and you know that you have a need for speed, maybe you've been divorced for 2 years, but your wife just got a boyfriend and it's getting serious. And you're running out of time, and you just know deep down that marriage is supposed to be restored. If you're not sure if your unique circumstances, if that's reversible, book a strategy session call with us. Scan the QR code on the screen that says book a call, or go to the link in the description where it says book a call. We'll put that in the comments and in the description, and we'll do a strategy call with you to see, does this make sense for you to take action? Do you have a need for speed? Is it smart for you to put time on your side? Are you willing to invest in the future that you want in your time and your finances? Or are you going to stay in the place where you're at right now, where you're going to pay the price that divorce is going to cost? Here's the price of divorce. You pay it until the day you die when you have children with somebody. If your wife is not remarried yet, even if she has a boyfriend, even if there's an affair partner, we can use all of that to rebuild intimacy and to restore your relationship. We can use what's intended for your harm. We can use that for your good, and we can do that in a practical way. But we can't do it unless you take action. If you've given your marriage to God, God has sent me here on this video to share something with you. That's not even biblical. There's no return desk for your marriage. God gave you the marriage. He expects you to do your part. Faith without works is dead. What I'm teaching in the program, and this is not just for Christians, it's not for any one denomination, but you've got to exercise your faith. If you're in a program and it made you feel good about yourself, but it's not making the relationship better, do something different. Get off the hamster wheel. If this is your second failed relationship or your third failed relationship, if you don't figure out how to restore this, you're going to repeat the same shit show with the next person. Take action, register for the masterclass, and book a call. So, Brian, communication gets back on point. You're fulfilling my legacy. My legacy is to take patients that are emotionally in a bad place, and so is their family, and turn them into doctors so that they can help themselves. And then after they graduate, and sometimes even before graduate, help other patients, starting with their wife, their children, and people that they have influence with, colleagues and coworkers, so that they can carry these seeds that are being planted and plant those same seeds. You become the tree that drops the seeds, which you're doing that. Tell me a little bit more about where it's taken you in your vision, and then also where your changes have started the process of helping your wife change, helping her get happy and not leaving her behind. Because anytime a marriage fails, there's two unhappy people. And changing yourself, that's awesome. But if you don't help her change, I don't think it's fair to let it die like that. I think it's doing her a disservice. She'll resent your changes if you're the only one changing.
That's actually initially what happened with that other program is I'd made some changes and she literally told me, I resent your changes. And I think probably that's what maybe pushed it over the edge for her to file. So what I've learned in this process is through good leadership, she's willing to follow and see the changes that I've made. She's asking questions. She's curious. She's like, how did you do these things? Where did you get all this information? And so I kind of let her in a little bit of the program and the process, and she's even more curious now. The vision, when somebody files on you like that, you're just thinking, man, this thing's over. What am I going to do?
Yeah. It's normal. It's normal for it to be over. When somebody files, it's not normal to restore marriage because nobody else is teaching what I'm teaching that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. And that's one of the reasons that attracted me to you and your program. And I was like, there is still hope. And I don't want to go with the people that keep telling me to just walk away because I don't think that's the right answer. I don't feel that in my heart.
Right.
And so my vision is now, looking forward, our marriage will be restored. Our kids will be in the same house. Our grandkids will understand what, grandpa did for the family someday in the future. And that's what I really want for our family is to break the generational curse of divorce and separation.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question. So I'm going to paraphrase what I'm hearing. So the first thing that I heard there was joy was in my heart somewhere before I joined the program, but I didn't know how to find it. That fruit was there, but nobody was seeing it because it was masked by depression. It was masked by, the changes I was making that were being resented. Because changing yourself will almost always backfire and make the relationship worse because it's literally not fair. I don't know if you've watched enough of my client testimonials. I've said this 2 or 3 times. I always give a different answer. When somebody says, what do you do for a living? I'm always on airplanes. At least once a week, I'm on an airplane going somewhere. I am the mouth in Christ, so I can't keep it shut. And so that always, leads to a conversation with whoever else is on the airplane of what do you do for a living? Because I'm always trying to help the person in the seat next to me because they need to have a breakthrough before we get from Little Rock to Atlanta, and I don't have any time to spare. But I get asked that question, and sometimes my answer is I actually help women and children have the life that they're supposed to have and that they deserve to have by teaching new leadership skills in communication and how to build intimacy and even entrepreneurship with the man in their life so that he can lead the entire family where everybody is where they're supposed to end up. So I want to pivot to your wife just for a second, if you feel comfortable sharing it. And if you don't, it's okay to say that. But here's the goal. I'm curious. So you brought out that it did change your wife in one way. Before, she wanted a divorce. And when a woman that wants a divorce, she has zero curiosity. Curiosity is where a relationship starts. If there would never be a marriage if a woman wasn't curious about you. Put in the comments right now if you know that your wife or your long-term baby mama relationship lover, she has zero curiosity. She has no interest in you other than how fast can we end this. But you told me that you started making some changes in communication, and now your wife starts getting curious as other people. They wanted what you have. But what it does for people is changing in communication and changing the way that I teach it in the program. It's a light that's attractive that other people get curious about it. And they should all start asking you, what's going on? How is this possible? Why? Because it is not normal. It's not normal. Do you see that the way that you've changed has helped your wife also start the evolution in the process of working back into finding her joy, not just happiness, but like that joy that maybe was suppressed before because of personal things that had nothing to do with you, personal things that had everything to do with you, and then life in general, that can suppress our joy with stress. I think that's what the Bible means when it says, leave peace with your other brothers and sisters that deserve it. Well, the way that you do that is through communication. A doctor that comes in to make a patient a doctor also. How did that affect your wife in a way that makes you feel good spiritually and emotionally and even like you have done the right thing in your integrity, the way that you're doing it? Not controlling. You gave up control to be in control of the life that you want, but now that new mindset is helping starting in your own house. How did that affect your wife and your children?
Yeah, what's interesting, and it started with just speaking to her and, like you said, understanding her and actually asking her what she wants out of life and what motivates her. And she was opening up to and telling me things that I've never heard before or never cared to listen to. I guess that was probably the real answer, is I didn't do a good enough job listening to her. But now she's going after different hobbies, and she's like, I started doing jujitsu, and she's like, hey, I want to do jujitsu with you. I was like, yeah, let's do it together, right? And so we're trying to find ways to make a stronger foundation than we had before. And what's funny is I think we have better communication right now than we had before, when I thought things were great. And so I can't even imagine what's going to happen in the future as we keep going down this path. And we're going to lead our kids that way. I feel like our kids are more open and just expressing themselves to us in a way that I didn't hear or see them before. And so really it makes me happy. That's the thing in my heart, is taking care of my family.
Ooh, I love that. You hear me as a student inside the program sometimes on the coaching calls. I don't know how often that you listen to me coach other students or whatever, but I really do mean it when I say you can get to a place emotionally with your spouse that becomes a spiritual experience. For me and my wife, we took it to a place where in the beginning it was so good, right? And then it went to hell and divorce. And then on the other side of doing and implementing all this stuff myself, we literally got to a place that for me personally, and it's my goal for all my students. Maybe a lot of the students think that I'm just full of shit. I don't know, but I really do mean this when I say this, that in my own personal marriage, I thank God every day that it broke down, because understanding how to see my wife with the eyes that I have now put us in a place that we so emotionally connected that the act of sexual intimacy for us became a form of worship to our Creator. It was that beautiful, that pleasurable. And it takes just a minute to get it there, but with those new eyes to see, I think it gives you a vision to literally see into somebody. So I don't know if you had this experience. This was my experience. When my wife filed for divorce, I wasn't really in love with her. Let me explain for you. Tune out if you're watching this video. I was in love with a woman that was dead. She no longer existed. I was in love with the idea of the perfect woman that I married, and I couldn't see the broken, hurting woman that was now in front of me many years after the marriage. And so what I mean by that is it took me letting go of somebody that wasn't even a reality anymore. And I started seeing how my lack of leadership, my harsh words, my lack of emotional and spiritual connection contributed to a woman that was hurting, that was depressed, that was miserable, that was full of pride and cover it up. And I fell back in love, I would say even deeper, with this new woman that I could now see that was broken, that was desperate for help, but the world doesn't have practical implementation. And I would even go so far as to say in the church in general, our pastors, our preachers, prophets, everybody has good intentions and there's Bible scriptures there. But if you don't have somebody that's been in these shoes, they'll never understand or be able to teach you how to practically implement those scriptures in a way that gives you the eyes to have a transformation by the renewing of your mind, so you can fall in love with that broken person that's in front of you that you don't even see. But once you have eyes to do that, now you're actually qualified through your experiences to help them at the same time you're helping yourself. Would you agree with that? Did you experience that at all?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember the picture when my wife and I got married, and that's the woman that's in my head, or was in my head, right? And then so all these years later, we have kids, we're older. I'm still thinking those things and seeing that. And she's far different. She's evolved over time. She's grown, she's matured. Yeah. And I wasn't seeing those things, right? And that was hurting her heart. And she's like, you don't even know who I am. And I'm like, of course I know who you are. We're married, right? But what she meant was I couldn't see her heart. And I certainly wasn't validating her as a woman. And now it's like I can see her, I see her isms, and I just get excited, to be around her and notice all the little things about her, what makes her special. And that makes me excited, right? That makes me happy.
Yeah. And what you do also is you stop showing up to protect her to death. You give her permission to want to do jujitsu. You give her permission to fail, to fall, and to flub things up. You give her permission to do all those things. And now all of a sudden, you're helping her. And now you have a helpmate in your marriage, which is the way it's supposed to be. where you both go where you're supposed to do. And what you also do for a lot of us is I married a woman. I married an emotionally mature woman. I really did. A lot of you have married an emotionally immature girl. But let me tell you what I did with my emotionally mature woman that I married. I showed up to protect her to death. And I controlled her, not intentionally, not meaning to control her, but I controlled her in a way that I thought was protecting her, that suppressed her into communicating like an immature 3-year-old girl. And then I got frustrated that I was married to an immature person that I felt like couldn't do some of the things that I would want a wife to do. Well, why? Because she would do it wrong. And eventually I just shut her down. I shut her down. And so a woman that gets shut down, that's pressure. What does pressure do? It goes to an enemy of the marriage to let off steam because it has to escape. The pressure, guess what? That pressure is supposed to come out in the relationship with the husband and wife, from the wife to the husband. And by the way, it's not supposed to come out from the husband to the man. Your wife is not designed to carry that weight. If you're dealing with issues and you need somebody to talk to, it's 100% okay to talk to somebody, but you find somebody else that has a penis and at least one testicle, maybe even two. Some people don't have descended ones and testicular cancer. The point I'm making is you don't share your problems like that with your wife. You don't put that weight of the world on her, but you are designed to help her carry her weight, but you're not designed to go keep the weight from being on her. Sometimes even God has a plan to put, even in the Bible, one of the things when a marriage is ending, this is what's normal. It happened in mine. My wife loves God. She does. But when she walked out, or I shoved her out, however you want to say that, when she filed for a divorce, I ran to religion. I ran to Jesus. I ran to the Bible. She ran away from all of it. And, she still loved Jesus in her heart, but she ran away from action steps that would actually be aligned with Scripture. And so what do we want to do immediately? In my mind, I'm like, you're definitely not being the Proverbs wife. Well, what does it actually say a Proverbs wife is? Here's what it says. She takes her hands and she buys a vineyard. She buys land and she plants a vineyard and she sells her harvest and she does all these things that's honoring with it. So what does that mean? That a woman can be a homemaker, which is a beautiful thing, but she can also do things that might be in line with God's calling her life, might be aligned with God's anointing on her to do something else. And what I mean by that is that Proverbs wife is describing a woman that through life experiences was in a marriage where her husband allowed her to be a woman. He allowed her to make mistakes. He allowed her to grow and actually be an adult. Your wife may not have to plant or buy a vineyard, right? But she deserves the freedom to fail, fall, and mess up, and you're there to help her back up. But you've got to give her permission to be an adult. How many? Put in the comments if your wife has talked about she can't breathe. Put in the comments if your wife has said things like, I feel like I'm one of your children. Put in the comments if you feel like you have to take care of her like one of the children, and you have the weight of the world that's on your chest, and you're not supposed to be carrying that weight. That's you holding on to control to protect her, which is not protecting her. It's actually hurting her. It's suppressing her, and it's hurting your entire family. Does any of that relate to you?
Well, all of it, actually. Yeah, I was putting a ton of pressure on her. I was working 5-6 days a week on 15, 16 hours a day, making her make all the decisions, right? I was putting all the pressure on her at home to make every decision for everything. And it wasn't planning date nights. If we went anywhere, always with her friends and her group of people, right? And she had to plan everything. And so just every aspect of our lives, she had to not only plan it, she had to carry it out because, hey, I'm working, right? And I'm paying the bills and that should be good enough, but it wasn't. And I know that now. And I think that's one of the things that shocks her when I plan things. Well, when I start to plan things, she's like, wow, you planned something. That was great, And I was like, yeah, that's what I'm supposed to be doing that.
Yeah, it's what I'm supposed to be doing the whole time. And I'm sure that you're radically different from any student I've ever had. I'm sure all those things that she was taking care of, I'm sure that you came home every day and said, wow, you did all of this right. And you had no criticism of any of that. So you never criticized, you never complained, you never condemned. You were always the opposite of the 3 C's. You never criticized, condemn, or complain. She did everything perfect, just how you would have. You always came home positive, polite, and playful, right? No way.
Never, right? Like I came home grumpy every day and I would holler and, so like every little thing I'm just nitpicking. And so as soon as she sees me, it's always negative, right? There was never any fun There's never any playfulness. And, I killed that spirit about her. And she's the most fun person. Like, I did exactly the opposite I should have been doing.
Right. And you didn't by chance, show up grumpy, but around 9:30, 10 o'clock when the lights go out and the kids are asleep, you didn't all of a sudden decide to be nice and get happy, did you? And like start building resentment on what's wrong with her? Why doesn't she want to like play, have fun time?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. How vital, as you were going through the process of this journey, so inside the support group for our students, so we've got the program, we host the program, we host the lessons, we have the live coaching calls. So if you get stuck, you have a resource basically on the members community. You can reach out there, but also you can literally get on a one-on-one coaching call. You can do your own coaching call with me or the other coaches. Right now in your Iron Sharpens Iron group, you have Marcel, but in addition to that, around the clock support where you're seeing your other brothers stacking up their wins. It's winners helping winners win, encouraging each other. So as a man thinketh is he. Everybody wins. And if you get stuck, we have the option to do the coaching calls every single week. You have access to me if you want to take advantage of that, to do a one-on-one coaching session with me. But how vital was it for you, if at all, no right or wrong answer, to have a community of men that started the journey before you? They were a week ahead of you, 2 weeks ahead of you, 3 weeks ahead of you, and you were seeing their results, their progress, when I'm giving you maybe coaching steps that absolutely maybe make you think, wow, this seems like it's the opposite of what I should do. But you're seeing the results of the other students because everybody's sharing that. How encouraging, or what was that like for you in that support group where you're literally having the other students that start before you sort of as a resource, as another 100 or 200 or 300 other coaches and their student? Like, is it one thing to hear it from the coach, but is it a different thing to hear it from a student that is 3 weeks ahead of you? Like, share your experience of that.
Sure. Yeah. You'll hear things from the coach and you literally think, that can't work. Come on. That's not going to be real, right? But I'm like, okay, I'm in this program, I'm going to do these things, right? But then one of the guys will get a hold of you and they'll comment or, you reach out and they say, hey man, I'm just a few short weeks ahead of you. And when I took these steps and I kind of changed my heart and my behavior, I saw these wins and I'm like, you saw those wins? Okay. I'm like, that was more buy-in, right? Once you see the guys that are ahead of you are really getting these wins, or the guys that restored their marriages, and you can kind of backtrack on their storyline a little bit and ask them questions. And they'll say, yeah, I was exactly where you are right now. And you're going to start seeing these things happen. And it was pretty amazing. And that kind of gives you the extra, the grit to keep going forward. Because sometimes, it's challenging to go through this process and change your heart and change your leadership and bring your family back together. Like, it's the hardest thing you're ever going to do, but it's also worth it. And so you don't want to give up. And it's great to have this community, and everybody wants to see the wins, right?
Yeah, 100% they do. So some of the stuff you're talking about, like where the other men are reaching out to you, encouraging you to take steps. Did you, as a new student, or even after maybe you had been in the program for a minute, did you kind of look at some of the other students where maybe you would see them post something or say something on a call where you might like go stalk them for a little bit? Like, where were they when they started compared to where they are now? Did you do any of that? I'm just curious. You kind of brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's a couple of guys who were farther along in the process, or guys who had already restored their marriages completely. And I would go click on their feed and see their wins on it, timeline with their wins, and kind of read what they were posting out there. I'm like, okay. And then when I kind of got to the beginning, I'm like, they were the exact same spot I'm in. And then I could see this kind of timeline. And so it kind of made it real in my mind and my heart. And I said, okay, I'm climbing this mountain, or going down the mountain one step at a time, and I'm going to get there.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you corrected yourself and said going down the mountain, because what I teach in the program in Divorce Stoppers right now, we all think this is the hardest thing you've ever been through in your life. Well, before you find this program, it is. But inside the program, day 1, I teach you how to start communication. And by day 7, you should be equipped to put on your tie, like the tie I'm wearing right now. You hear me talk about it. Probably people are like, so sick of hearing Denver talk about this stupid tie. But what is that tie? I put it on every single morning. Today, when I got up, I'm in a great marriage. My wife and I are on point with everything, soulmate status. But today, I'm working on a massive project to implement AI technology in our company with our first release this September, so that every student has a VIP experience. And so it is a huge project, and it actually makes sense to not outsource stuff that I used to would just hire people like on Upwork or whatever. With AI, it's so much faster to just do it myself. And it's a lot. And so I just tell myself every single day when I get up, like all these different projects I'm working on. I just started golf lessons. I just started pickleball lessons. I just got me a personal trainer again because I've been bitching about my neck being too thin. And I know that, my wife wants the thicker neck and she deserves the thicker neck, right? She deserves that. And so I tell myself every single day when I get up, Johnny the Rocket, I don't know if you know who that is, but it was the most popular Nike commercial of all time. It was a 300-pound overweight guy that was depressed with a brain tumor, with cancer in his brain. And he said, I'm going to be on a Nike commercial. And the only reason it actually happened, and I met that guy in San Juan at a conference and became friends with him, and I text him now sometimes, but I literally heard him say, the reason I was in a Nike commercial is I just told myself, this is going to be the easiest thing I've ever done in my life, to lose 200 pounds, to decrease my brain tumor, to line up a video production team that is a $50,000 project and I don't have any money, but he just knew it was going to be easy. And he told himself every single morning that, now he didn't mention the tie. I'm good at acronyms, so I came up with that. But he said the way that I did it was I just told myself my whole life, everything I've ever done was I told myself it was hard, and it was. He said, this time I told myself every day, this is easy. And he said, people just started coming out. His next door neighbor, he overheard him talking about they had some new video equipment and they want to do like this production and they want to demo it. Literally gave him free a $50,000 video production. And it happened the same week he started telling himself it was easy, like literally stuff that was miraculous. My tie, this is easy. But if you don't understand practical steps to make it easy, so if you're a guy right now, what would you tell this man, Brian? There's a lot of men right now that are watching this. They've lost 40 pounds this month. They're laid up on the couch. They're depressed. They have literally become addicted to YouTube videos. They're in another program. They feel really good about themselves. They're not suicidal anymore. They got in the gym. Their biceps are bigger. They've even added 3 inches to Mr. Johnson down here. They're feeling really good. Walking with some pep in their step. The relationship got worse though, because their wife is getting left behind. That guy that literally thinks, I don't see a path to restore this. Now that you have the floor, what would you tell that guy, and why would you tell him what you're telling him?
Yeah, I did feel hopeless when I started the program. And so I thought, this is my only hope, is to get in this program. I would tell somebody who's thinking about joining, if you are ready to put the work in, if you are ready to lead your family back, if you are ready for a restoration of your marriage, of your life, join the program, put the work in, connect with the men in the group, take the coaching, listen, do what they say to do, and see the results, right? And you're going to change your life forever. I think some people are scared to succeed. We're told divorce it just happens, but no, it doesn't. You don't have to have a divorce in your life. Right? You can learn the leadership, learn your heart, bring your family back together, and it's worth it. And there's going to be some hard times in there because you're changing yourself, and for the better. Yeah. But it's going to be worth it in the end. It's going to be worth it for your children and your grandchildren. And that's one of the things I just think about in the future is, man, my kids are going to look back someday and say, Dad, you did this for our family? I'm like, yes, I did. You guys are worth it. So if people are worried about the cost, don't be worried about that. You're going to lose far more divorce. You're going to lose far more throughout your life in child custody or whatever else. It's worth it to restore your family and do it right now. Don't wait. I waited. I was talking to one of the other brothers, Dylan, and we both were kind of lamenting about, man, if we just would have joined 6 months sooner, we could have saved ourselves so much heartache. And we waited. We thought we could do it on our own. We could join other programs. We thought YouTube was going to fix it for us. I thought my pastor was going to help me. Good-hearted man, but it didn't help. I needed to get in here and do something different. And this program taught me how to be different.
Yeah. And so I love that you're bringing that up. If you can relate to Brian and what he's going through, if you've went to your pastor, if you're on YouTube and you're watching and you're listening to somebody, maybe you're listening to some guy that, is a doctor and he left his wife 20 years ago and moved in with his girlfriend. His girlfriend ditched him, and then his wife was nice enough to take him back. And now he's teaching marriage restoration. That might be amazing, but if he wasn't in your shoes, is he qualified to take you where you want to go? What's his success rate with people that are like you, not couples flying into whatever city that are both wanting to work on it? But if you're facing an unwanted divorce and she is not willing to work on it because she feels like she's done, if that's you, who are you going to for help? If you're asking your friends, if you're asking your pastor, if you're talking to a counselor, If they haven't been in your exact shoes, there is no way in hell they know how to navigate the waters to go where you need to go, how to implement, to exercise your faith, those practical steps. How do you see, hear, and value out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks? How do you change your heart so that you're speaking to your wife in a way that makes her feel heard, valued, and seen? If you know that you are running out of time and you have a need for speed, if you haven't already hit the bell notification after you subscribed, do that. I am teaching communication training to my non-students who are my subscribers of YouTube. This week, we are going to launch the registration page somehow on YouTube. We're still figuring out how to do that technologically, but it's going to happen this week. Put in the comments if you want that free training. And if you haven't already registered for the free Marriage U-Turn Masterclass, the link is in the description of the video. But also, if you have a need for speed, if you know that things are going to get back, if you have children, divorce is the price that you pay until you go home to meet your maker. You will never. I have an ex-spouse, and that was almost going on 2 decades ago that we were divorced, a decade and a half, close to 2 decades now. My children and me personally, my new wife, we're all still paying every Christmas, every Easter, every birthday, every holiday, every birth of a grandchild, every event that causes families to come together. It's always a cluster. We're still all paying the emotional, the financial, and the spiritual price, and it is not fun. It is the reason that a second marriage has about that much of a chance of making it, because there's so much stress that carries in from the first one. So if you're in your first one and you know you have a need for speed, if you've done this twice, if you've done it 3 times, do something different and get off of the hamster wheel. If you can relate to this video, if you feel like that you're in the shoes that I was in, that Brian is in, and you know that there's a path forward, because I think we have about 30 success stories on this channel right now where you can go and watch all those. If you want to take the first step of turning it all around and taking back your life, giving up control of things beyond your control to take control of your new leadership to help yourself, but also to help your family, starting with your wife. Secondly, register for a free strategy session call. QR code's on the screen right now, or you can go to the link or the comments and click the button where it says book a call here and turn that around. If you have been talking to enemies of the marriage and you're dealing with that, and that's 100% where you're at, after you register to book a call, you register for the free Marriage U-Turn Masterclass, watch this next video if that's the next thing that you're dealing with.